It's so great to meet the two of you. How are you doing?
Hi,
We are
James.
great. Happy to be here.
Yes, it feels great.
Well, I'm so excited to hear a little bit about your journey on the race. But before we recap last night's episode, I would love to just hear more about how the Amazing Race came into your lives. What made you decide to apply? How many times did you apply? And were you longtime fans?
Courtney was initially the bigger fan of the
You
two of
know,
us. Some kind of way
it
I
was a
went
requirement
and I
in the
had no
relationship.
idea before today. Right? Somehow I've gone all these years of my life having never watched the show. But when we started dating, it was something that we just naturally fell into watching. And I think it took maybe 2 or 3 episodes, and I was just like,
She was
"Oh my
hooked.
gosh!" Like this show it's in the title. This show is amazing, like
Sure.
literally. And so, yeah, we just continued to watch season after season, and we came up with this bright idea of like,
Let's apply.
Like, we can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was 2 attempts for
Yep.
us.
Yep. It
Um,
just took 2 times for
yeah.
us. And it was so surreal.
It was
like
when you get the phone call, honestly, it's like in the middle of life, of course.
Mhm.
And we're like, oh my God, are they really?
This
is
is
this not a prank? So yeah, it was pretty surreal and of course amazing at the same time.
it really was.
So when you got that initial call, what did you do to start preparing before leaving for the race?
So one of the biggest things for me, given that I was I am in graduate school. Oh my God, it's taking forever. But I had to really put the Amazing Race on a pedestal because I knew that it would take a lot. And
Right.
so I just put school on a pause for a moment. And it was really just kind of like rearranging things in our lives to really give it all we got. Because we're like, if we're going to do this, let's go all in.
Yeah. Shifting work schedules and then, just kind of taking inventory of the different things we saw done on the race, the seasons that we had previously watched, and just, starting to look at flags and practicing our stick shift driving. What else did we do? We
did lots of crafts.
We did lots of crafts. And something that somehow we've been forgetting, we were doing archery at the time as well.
Yeah.
Smart. Okay.
Yeah. We were doing archery on Saturdays at the Sokoto House, which is like a community hub here in our area.
Being open to whatever, honestly,
Really,
because
truly.
for us, it wasn't about spending a lot of money to figure out like all these different things to do. We were trying to find things in our backyard that, was accessible to us to help us prepare.
Yeah, getting maps and just like doing all those things that we knew were kind of like staples of the Amazing Race.
Resourceful. And I have to ask before we recap last night's episode, was season 32 one that you rewatched to get prepared?
Oh, yeah. We watched. Absolutely. Okay.
How could we not? That was such an amazing season.
Yeah. And honestly, I think when we think about the Amazing Race, there are so many different types of people that are like applying and different people that you see on the race. But what makes, I think, our season so special is that we had so many queer people on our season. Super sweet and super special. Okay.
It definitely is. I can say that as a viewer. I was very excited at all the queer representation on your season. Now I'm excited to talk about your journey in Kyoto. At the start of the episode, you get route info that tells you to travel by bullet train to Kyoto from Osaka. You left the pit start just moments before Pops and Jeff, yet somehow they got on an earlier train. Did you see them at the station at all, or were they just like that stealthy and cutting the line and getting that earlier train?
So
we did see them indeed. Actually, we were in line. We were where we needed to be.
And, the previous leg, we had worked with them on the intersection when they were playing the taiko drums. And so I think a level of like trust was formed there. Right. And so I think something was asked about like whether we were in the right line or something. It for a moment, unfortunately, made us second guess ourselves. And
we got out of line.
Yeah. Rookie mistake, very big rookie mistake. And and that happening so early in that leg, I think it impacted us. It affected me at least, because I was just like, oh my God, like why would we do that? Why didn't we trust ourselves and just like wishing that had we just stayed where we were, like we would have gotten out of the station much sooner. And, you know, that time would have been useful at other points of the leg.
Well, you eventually got on train 4 with Erica and Melinda. So at least you had one other team in sight with you, which is always, I think, kind of a nice cushion. It makes you feel a little more comfortable when another team is with you. You get to Kyoto, you have to do the fortune paper task where you have to dip that sheet of paper into water to reveal your next clue. After you got that clue, there seemed to be some kind of confusion or mix-up. You were asking people about where to go in terms of directions. They didn't seem to know. Then you stopped to ask a bus driver, then your clue dried up. What was going on in that moment for the two of you?
We were scrambling. We left in the middle of the pack that day. So we felt really confident, like when we started the leg, because the leg before we had found our groove. We were feeling really good. Mm-hmm. We had talked about things that we were going to do different. Yeah. You know, and then, you know,
one of those things was keeping our taxi if ever we needed to.
Yes. Yeah. And when the pressure hits, you know, sometimes, unfortunately, the things that you plan to do kind of slip out of your mind. And then you find yourself scrambling, doing what we were doing. I think that us asking for directions, that might have been us trying to like do something sooner than later, you know, and just trying to figure out if there was somebody in there who would have been able to help.
Proactive,
right. So we were trying to be proactive, at least in that regard.
Yeah. And then our clue drying up.
I know. I got to give you some props and praise because you had quick thinking and used your personal water bottle to reveal the clue again and then write it.
It was either that or lick the clue.
I know, you're out there licking the clue on the street. Yeah. What are these two doing?
I would have taken a lot of steps. You would have dried
whatever was necessary.
So and that was another thing, like had written down the name of our next destination, you know, before we just like jetted out of there. So there are moments
we got to give ourselves grace because there was a lot of pressure with, like, I think there were 4 teams. We were neck and neck.
Yeah. A lot of people caught up
a few moments apart.
Yeah, we were. And it speaks to, like, you know, kind of like the pressure, like the Amazing Race, it's a race. Yeah. So innately you want to make sure that you're moving efficiently, right? But there are also moments where you need to take a step back to like think clearly,
pause and
reassess, and, you know, things that we know as nurses, but this was something so new to us. It's so out of our comfort zone. We went from being, you know, active viewers to now actively doing this. And so, you know, it's a lot that you have to navigate that you can't dissect or really like, you know, wrap your head around until you're in the moment.
Yeah.
Very true. Especially now I want to talk about the roadblock, because I know when you were at the roadblock, you mentioned your different backgrounds. Jasmine, you're into sports. Courtney, you're more of the band. I'm the band geek too, so I totally get it. But Jasmine, at one point you said this is probably a roadblock you should have done. So walk me through your thought process. Like, how did you decide that Courtney was ultimately going to be the one to do the roadblock?
Something that we had decided was we were going to do every other roadblock, right? And so some kind of way that day when we opened the clue, we both were like, yes, we'll do it. I'll do it. And it was, you know, so we had to pause. And in that pause, you know, in hindsight, we realized we could have dialogued about like, okay, well, remember we said we were going to do this, or okay, why is it that you want to do this? Because it was an act of love.
Yeah, because my reasoning was Jasmine did the bun scramble. So I felt like it took a lot of upper body strength. I remember her muscles being sore. And I was like, you know what? I can do this. I'm going to go for it. In hindsight, definitely should have. Because I remember watching last night and I was like, and my face, when I said yes, I look unsure.
Right. So it's like, and again, it speaks to the pressure of the moment because, you know, we knew at that point we were kind of towards the back of the pack. And so you're not wanting to take so much time making a decision because you need to, you know, go ahead and get started on whatever this thing is. Something else we had said was, like, when we saw the title of the roadblock, we would try to figure out. But again,
those clues are always tricky.
I don't know what I thought kicks meant. I don't know. I thought it meant
who knows?
Right. Right. So, all things again that we said we would do, but in the moment of pressure, you kind of just feel pressed to make a quick decision when a few more seconds would have led to a clearer decision.
Well, even though this moment might have been like a pressure point in the race for the two of you, Jasmine, your support of Courtney during that roadblock did not go unnoticed as a viewer. Courtney, what did that moment mean to you with her supporting you on the sideline?
Honestly, it was very special for me. Something Jazzy and I have talked about is when you lose a parent, you kind of lose like that safety net and security. And just knowing that I had that in a partner is like tremendous. So it was so amazing to be able to hear her voice and hear the encouragement that she was giving me. And also being able to like encourage myself from that.
Right.
There were moments I had to pause. I kneeled down. I was like, oh, girl, you look like you about to pass out. All of this is me reliving it. And I'm like, oh, those were heavy emotions that I was feeling. But all the while I was hearing Jazzy, even watching it and remembering like she was there with me in the experience. And I think that matters so much, is to have somebody that you love, like cheering you on. They want you to succeed as much as you want to succeed as well.
Yeah. Like
make the world of a difference.
Yes. And she was trying so hard, like I could see it. And even though
it was a struggle.
And even though I'm the one that's more sporty and she was in the band, like it didn't stop me from believing that she was going to do it. I knew she was going to do it. Right. It was a matter of when, not if, and so I just wanted her to remember that she was capable and to know that like I was still over there, keeping the positivity going as best as I could for her, in spite of where things may have been for us during that leg. So,
well, it was a beautiful moment. And Courtney, I said this to Ernest last week. So many times on the racers are willing to just throw in the towel and complain and give up, but you pushed through, you persevered, and you overcame. So you should be very proud of yourself. And even though you left the roadblock in the last position, you get to the detour of Folded, and there were still a few other teams there. So did that give you new hope in the leg? Did you feel like you had a chance to catch up?
Yes, from the taxi, we could see the shoes. We were like, people are shoes. There was never a moment that we felt like we couldn't. It was just, there's so much unknown. You got to give it your all. You got to like push through. So when we walked into the temple, we walked in with a lot of hope.
We did. We planned to be focused, and we initially even had started like writing out little words to symbolize like the shapes that were being made, like
hamburger, hot dog, diagonal,
and at some point the notebook got slid to the side.
It slid underneath the paper at one point. I don't know. It was missing.
I've forgotten, right? And so when we got there, Nick and Mike were still there. Han and Holden were there, and they were having some difficulty with it. So it's not that you rooting to see somebody, not do well, but also it's like, okay, they're struggling.
It's reinvigorating. You're like, there's other teams.
And then Bernie and Kerrigan eventually showed up. And so then it was really on, because it's like, okay, this is it. It's the four of us, and somebody in this room is going home today.
It seemed like it was between you and Bernie and Kerrigan getting to the pit stop. How far behind were you when you ultimately checked in?
Probably about 15 minutes. We saw one thing that we did not know is that what we saw last night is they were struggling to get a taxi, which we're not strangers to that. Right. So we don't know really how much time that was. And so that just showed us like, there was a reason, of course, why you should always keep going, because you never know.
Right. Especially on the Amazing Race. You really never know. Like, we didn't know if it was a pit stop next. We didn't know if it was a keep racing.
You never know.
In anything.
We were in the taxi hoping maybe it's a keep racing.
Maybe somebody got lost on the way to the pit stop. Like, all these things, which sounds so terrible to say out loud, because you don't wish for somebody to like fail.
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's the race.
Well, I am a firm believer that your time was cut way too short. I'm wearing yellow in your honor today. Thank you so much for your time and sharing a little bit about your experience. It was a joy to watch the two of you. You clearly raced with a lot of heart. And Courtney, I know you got to share a little bit about your story with your mom in last night's episode. And I'm sure that resonated with a lot of viewers who have either gone through that or are currently experiencing that. So thank you for your vulnerability and sharing. But I hope to meet the two of you sometime in the near future because I feel like we would have a lot of fun together.
Absolutely. No question.
Well, enjoy, of course. Enjoy the rest of your day. It was nice to meet you.
Take care.
Bye, y'all.